Today we're going to look at a number of things in this number 10 of our videos on things surrounding Greensburg, Pennsylvania. We will take a look at Lynch Field, and we will see the home of one of the founders of the town of Green. We'll see the East Greensburg Railroad Station. We will see a mine, a Rosetown mine. And we'll see a camp that was built by the railroad for more than 200 people when they were doing all the improvements to the railroad around 1910. It actually started before 1910 and ended after 1910. For a couple years they were there. And we're going to now switch over and look at the beginning here. This is Lynch Field many years ago. You can see down here they had a circus setting up. It looks like you can see that the tent, a big old circus tent down there. And then as years went on, things at Lynch Field were somewhat modified, improved, modernized, if you call that modern. That's a grandstand, and here they have the track fixed up to have races. This is 1912 mapping. You can see it's called the Fairgrounds. And the railroad is going through here. We'll see a few other things along the railroad as we look at things. This is 1876. This is the railroad coming through. And you can see the fairgrounds there. It was still the fairground in 1876. What we're looking at here was a little engine house along the railroad, PRR engine house. They needed a place to work on the locomotives too now and then. Sometimes they needed attention and needed fixed, and this was one of the places that they had set up to do that, but it didn't stay there forever. This is contemporary view. This is where the little engine house was. And by 1901, that engine house had been moved over here. This is right in the Y, where the southwest branch used to connect with the main line. This is 1901. This is the engine house, right in the middle of the Y. And this is the tower, the southwest tower that controlled the interaction of traffic coming up from the south on the branch and interacting with the main line. That's a railroad photograph of their control tower there at the head of the southwest branch. And now we go down the branch just a little bit past George Street, and you can see Pittsburgh Street down here. Over here was the house of one of the founders of the town, General Jack, also known as Captain Jack and William Jack. He was quite a busy fellow. This over here was the East Greensburg Railroad Station, and we'll get a look at that. It's hard to find any really good photograph of it. I just did that view to try to call up memory of it in some manner. That's what it looks like today. That's where the station used to sit. It was gone probably since the 1930s. And that was once the home of William Jack. William Jack was one of the founders of Greensburg. He was also a judge and a captain in the local militia. He was a busy guy and had a big house. Now we go a bit further east out the railroad tracks. These are the railroad tracks. And right in this area here, we're going to look at to localize it a bit more. This is the road coming up through Rosetown, and this is the place where the Rosetown Road goes underneath the railroad. This was the site of a camp built for all these guys who were employed by the railroad to do all the improvements on the road. The railroad had to be raised about 2 feet where it went through Greensburg. The tunnel was torn out. A new station was built. And a tunnel was built underneath the railroad where College Avenue now goes under. Prior to 1910, that had been a dead end there. It didn't go under the railroad. I tried to put together a little view of what the camp might have looked like. There's probably no one alive today who knows actually what it looked like, but we know it had a little store for the people. It had a dining room and kitchen where people could eat, and there were bunkhouses. And there were more than 200 people. There were at least 200 guys. There were 14 kids and 5 women there. Probably some of the supervisors had family with them. And it was probably not one of the most peaceful and wonderful places to live. When you have a bunch of single guys, which most of them were together, a lot of rowdyism and hell-raising usually happened, and the guys wandered into town often to get drunk and raised hell. So no one was really too unhappy when they left town. No one bothered to record the place, as far as I know. I'd like to find out that somebody has a photograph of it, but I doubt it. This is 1939, and it shows looking down from above. This is where the road goes underneath at Rosetown. This is Lynch Field. And this road was not here when the camp was there, but it was right in this area here. And I'll go up a little bit further here, and you can see just a little bit of structural remains that are still there in 1939. This is a topo map. Here's Lynch Field. Here's the road coming up through Rosetown and under the railroad. And this is where the camp was. It was down in a hollow, which gave it a little bit of protection from the the wind coming over. There was a stream coming through. Now here we take another change. This is Rosetown over here, the houses. And there was a mine here once upon a time. Rosetown was built as company housing for a mine that had been there at least since 1884. In 1884, it was taken over by the Hempfield Coal Company. In 1902, it became part of the Keystone Coal and Coke. This is the only building that's left from the mine. It was the lamp house, lamp shanty. Somebody converted it into a dwelling. And I was told somebody lived there who descended from one of the miners who worked at the mine. You can see one of the company houses up here on the hill. These or more company houses, the road going up into Rosetown, it goes off of Rosetown Road. And this is the little underpass. And what we know about this is it was built during the time that the camp was over here on the other side of the road. This was obviously one of the projects that they used, that they did as improvement for the railroad at that time. I'm always impressed by those stones. It just gives the impression that that thing is going to be there forever. Reminds me of some of the old Roman ruins. And this is our recap picture. We see Rosetown over here that we were just looking at, and the mine, which was over here. This was where the camp was for the railroad workers that were doing all the improvement around 1910. Lynch Field over here, and the Y, where the Southwest branch used to connect to the main line. And that's going to be enough for today. And I'm going to say so long, and we'll see you again. Bye.